Welcome to the Daily Dev Talk with me, Adrian Nantchev, where we explore and share stories of the best game you can. Stay tuned for today's episode. Good morning, Overload Nation. Adrian here, and I'm with Ben Droste. Title: The Eyes of Ara, a 3D puzzle game set in a castle where you unlock its secrets, uncover its mysteries. Ben, please tell us about the game and about yourself.
Well, yes, my name's Ben Droste. I'm in the game now since 2013. So, as you said, it's a 3D puzzle adventure game where you sort of explore this old mysterious. So, the idea behind the game is that there's a lot of troubling stories about the castle and what's going on inside it, and the owner of the castle, radio signal, has started broadcasting from the tower. And so you've been sent inside to try and discover what's going on. So you go inside and you'll sort of bits and pieces you find lying around the place and trying to figure out what's going on there. And while you're in there, you'll sort of start to investigate what you're doing there.
So, very nice. So I'm thinking, or is that oversimplifying it?
No, it's essentially what it is. There's more than just pointing and clicking, though. I've worked to interact with the world through point-and-click action, but you explore the rooms with a 3D rotatable camera-based movement system, so you don't walk around like an FPS, but in each room you have full range to look around and click on something that looks interesting, turn, twist, click, move, whatever, to solve the puzzle. So it's kind of a combination between a 3D interaction.
I think kind of on the point-and-click, because you mentioned somewhere I think on Kickstarter or somewhere that you wanted to the story in more ways than just the setting.
Yeah, so my background is as an environment about the environment. So the story of the game is really the story of the castle and what's gone on here. So there are obviously through the environment itself, and so you explore the castle by exploring the environment, interacting with it, opening cupboards.
This is one thing I like about this game, Overload Nation, is that Ben is using spoken language in the game to tell the story and to progress the plot and for the player to discover it. But that's pretty powerful in its own way, Ben.
Yeah, and that was a deliberate decision from the start. I mean, I'm not a character artist. I'm an environment, so I felt if I can tell a story using the environment, then it does transfer. First of all, it keeps the translation requirements down.
Yeah.
But it also it does mean that it can, without the need to really speak the language, because it's a visual language.
Tell me more about the radio signal you mentioned that was picked up. I think is that aliens. There's something with aliens and robots that inhabit the castle, or take it down, or is this the wrong direction?
Well, I can't talk too much about it because it'll give away the plot, but which I want to make a point of. It's not like an old ancient castle. Well, it is an ancient castle, but it's not set in medieval times or something. So a radio signal makes. So there was a guy who lived there. He was a bit of a tinkerer and a scientist, and did a lot of. Was known for doing bits and pieces. But he hasn't been heard from for a long time now, and all of a sudden this radio signal started broadcasting static and noise, essentially. And it's disrupting radio communication in the nearby towns. So somebody has to shut it down, and you're being in. As to whether what its origin is, I'm not going to go into that. But the idea is that there's a lot of a recluse. He wasn't heard from very often. And people like to tell tales about the castle and say they used to see Elise at the place and the disappearance of the man and his family. So there's a lot of scary stories about.
In my opinion, it seems like a very calm game. I have a slight hunch that you'll leave some unanswered. I'm thinking that as well.
Well, what is left unanswered will really be up to you. I don't want to spoon-feed the plot. It's more of told by you discovering bits and pieces lying around the castle, and so you can kind of piece together what happened once you find it all. Find everything, you'll probably have a lot of unanswered questions. If you just complete the main puzzles and finish the game, you may not even understand what went on. But if you find them together, most of it. There'll obviously be some unanswered questions. It's not completely written yet, so there's always scope to leave some unanswered.
And completely written, there's going to be some lore missing out?
I suppose so. I'm not really sure what you mean.
The universe, the plot is not all there or such, but...
Well, I mean, I have most of the writing, in-game writing has not been done yet. So there's still a lot of that to do. How much I actually include in the game at the end there is the question, all of that in the finished game. I guess we'll find out as I come to put it all in there. And then, of course, a lot of it will be interpreted, might get a different interpretation than others, which is fine. That's good.
One thing I like about has a concentration on cutscenes is that if the player discovers the plot for himself, rather than just playing a level, watching a cutscene, and the story progresses automatically. By the look, the player slowly discovers it and realizes it and understands implications and the plot and things that they could learn from it, or things that leads me to the idea that it could leave some answers, some questions even unanswered by the end. Do you agree as well?
All the characters have their own storylines about when they arrive there and when they disappeared and what happened will be answered. So if those ones are left unanswered, it's probably because you've missed something along the way and didn't figure it out.
Well, I'm sure that some people will appreciate it for its art, and others will appreciate it for the story. Ben, I want to know a bit more about you. You've said you've been in the industry for 10 years and in level modelling. And tell us a bit about your backstory and history. What games have you worked on, and how did you get in?
And I got my first job in 2004, I think it was. I don't remember anymore. At a game studio in Australia. And they got bigger and bigger, and then eventually had to downsize dramatically in the middle of the GFC. Australian games companies hard. We relied heavily on outsourcing as being outsourced, cheap Australian dollar to make their games for them. And Australia weathered the GFC really, really well. And our dollar against a lot of people, but really bad for the games industry. So we lost all our contracts, and the industry pretty much died. So Chrome was called to work for a studio called K&M Games, which is the studio that made Happy Feet, so we did the game for Happy Feet 2. That studio then got shut down. So I then went on to work for great people there. And just as I was thinking I could really like this place, we got word that was getting shut down. And it was at that point, that was 2000, to do my own thing. So
yes,
that was when I started working on the Eyes of Ara. Though it didn't have a title back then, and it wasn't. That's pretty much what I've been doing ever since. There was a short stint last year. I worked for about 8 months at a friend's cells when Sega shut down. Basically same thing I was doing. They started their studio and they're working on a game called Satellite Rain. So in the middle of it, and as a level designer for them. And then straight back onto Eyes of Ara.
So 100 Stones Interactive to be in control of the studio and essentially to control your own destiny.
Essentially, yeah. I wanted to do a game by myself that it's possible to do that. And it's been possible to do that for quite some time, but possible as someone whose background is in art, for a game that's quite sizable as well. Mm-hmm. So prior to, and really, really difficult to do this on my own, but now it's at a point where the tool sets are fantastic. You've got access to enormous communities for support, generic assets and scripts and stuff, which have really helped to streamline the development of it.
Yeah, I understand and agree. 4-ish years, especially 4 or 5-ish years, is that it's become increasingly easy for games to be made on a one studio or in a garage, like how it used to be done. It used to be done in the 80s, and it's becoming increasingly easy and affordable now. There are growing communities and tutorials out there, and all the resources that are available to everyone. All they need is a computer with internet. Create a very simple game or a game very effectively, very easily, and that could take them to studio or join other ones and such. And it's amazing how technology has come along, and we're seeing this with UE4, and I think it's only got Kismet on Unreal Script, and now it's Blueprint. It's getting easier and simpler for people to make games by themselves or on indie in a way.
It is a bit like that. It's certainly helped out the indie studios, that's for sure. It's the Australian indie, and even though larger ones now are doing a lot of sort of indie-esque games, I would suppose you would say. They're small. It's entirely possible now to build your own thing, to work on your own IP, and to work on your own interesting and unique ideas, which is great, because it's really playing the same generic stuff all the time.
Yeah, there's that creative freedom, because other people have that ability and the tech are taking the era in its way as a very unique IP and stands out in its own way. Has its own charm, all sorts of realms, all sorts of what's the word? All sorts of achievements. But getting back to the game, though, Ben, I'm very curious. What was your aim for the player to experience?
Well, I think within the first 18 minutes, you should have a pretty good grasp on the general gameplay. I mean, it'll start out, you'll do a game, so you sort of know how to interact with the game. And then within the first 18, 20 minutes, you should have a good handle on how the game plays. There's a lot of history of the castle, that something strange has happened here in the past, and that something strange is still in 18, 20 minutes in, you'll have the notion that you're being watched, and that there's something awakening here, and has taken notice to your presence.
Was that a slip of the tongue, or a bit of a leak there?
No, I think that's been well said a few times already.
Lights and robots flying around, and I think out of place, especially. I think, yes, something is strange going off.
Yeah, that's been tricky for most of it. But since I've used them quite a bit in pitching the Kickstarter, it doesn't seem much of a point in keeping them hidden anymore. I may have to bring them out a bit soon.
Everyone likes robots, and blue is my favorite colour. But Ben, what was the one big?
I couldn't narrow it down to one thing, to be honest. I've learned so much because I'm an environment artist. I've had to teach myself, working them a little bit throughout my career and at uni and stuff. I've never had to really dive in and do it myself. So I've learned everything from it. Animation, everything. I now have a massive new respect for programmers, which I'm sure...
Are you working on your own on this project, or is there a team?
No, it's just me.
Oh, yeah, UI program.
Why I meant that the tools now allow me to do that. Programming was daunting when I first jumped into it. I was a bit worried about that, but it turned out to be not...
I don't know whether it's because I started with UScript or just me in general, but I didn't take to it very much. Inheritance and variables and all the rest, no. Maybe if I try C++ or others, I might like it, but overall, I understand.
Back at uni, but it turned out I was just taught really badly back at uni. They got us doing this horrible pseudocode sort of nonsense. I entered my idea of what programming was from then on. So it was only when I started doing this and started trying to teach myself programming again and taught it really well and really clear that it clicked, and it was a lot of fun from that point on. There are a lot of the tools, which is a popular Unity plugin, which allows you to... It's a visual state machine tool, basically. So I can drag everything, do these things, then go to this state and play this animation. And it's really good for really basic stuff that
I go back to my point earlier. It is becoming increasingly easier for people to do it themselves without needing a big budget and big team the way the technology is going. But I want to know, Ben, what was your light bulb moment in the game? What where you felt that this game is magical in its own way, or I can see it coming alive, or it's like in Unity, people are playing it?
There was a moment before PAX Australia in 2000 to take down and show to my friends. I didn't show it publicly, I just showed it to some friends who I knew were going to be there. And so at that point, I'd built a lot of the code base for them start to end. Took about 10 minutes, a few simple puzzles in it. And I gave it to people to play. And at that point, it started to really feel intuitively picked up how to play it. It played well, and it really felt like it came together. So how to interact with stuff or how to use an item. That was the first one where there was actually a game, even if it was only a short 10-minute level, you could play from beginning. This can actually work.
Yeah, it's that magic moment. I can understand that. But Ben, what was your latest? Somehow it just didn't work.
Working with data serialization finally sorted now. That was the first major programming barrier I encountered. It's something unlike anything else I'd done programming for the game at the time. For those who don't know what I'm talking about basically saving that was very different style of programming, reading external data and writing it back out to external data. Moment, I suppose. It was just the most significant major hurdle I've encountered up to this point. But
yeah,
that was
fun.
Yeah, but I knew out of the way. Hopefully I won't encounter any more of them.
Yeah, it won't be very fun if you couldn't save. Unless you want to go back to the 70s. And...
Start you halfway through.
Exactly. Or Game Boy Color games 10 years ago, 15 years out of that. What was your luckiest moment while making the game?
I don't think there was really a luckiest moment, particularly planned out, but I approached it from a very environments because that's my specialty. I knew I was going to minimize the risk in other areas because they weren't my specialties. So there wasn't a lot of luck involved.
An understanding and very thorough.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could say that I haven't had any serious project, but I had a couple of crashes that's taken files with it, but I have regular backups and source control. You'd be a fool not to do that. So,
Speaking of planning, Ben, what is the best advice you've ever received?
When you're working on a project like this, especially if you're doing it by yourself, it's really easy to get focused on one particular area. So, early on in development, after I'd done this demo I talked about earlier, and I started to design a test level and showed it to an artist friend. And he looked at it and he pointed out that I'd neglected with lines or curved lines or straight lines to lead the eye to certain locations, or rule of thirds of how. He's absolutely right. I'd spent so long focusing on developing the code and getting all the puzzles in there that which was kind of embarrassing, but it was a good light bulb moment as well to say that it's absolutely worth getting and forget about that sort of stuff. So I went back and redesigned that test level, and then every subsequent level diary just the other day that talked about the design, and one of the things I mentioned in it was the art composition. And I pointed out that the level puzzles placed, and that it's done in such a way that as you rotate the camera around a room, they tend to be split up and separated in such a way as that they fall into sort of the rule of thirds kind of composition, and a lot of the lines around the room are placed in such a way that the lines they create tend to draw your eye to the most important elements of the room. So the puzzle is a difficult thing unless it's supposed to be hidden. Generally a puzzle should be puzzling in and of itself, not finding it. I don't want people just composed and lit in such a way as to draw your attention to where it needs to be, which is the main puzzles. And then on the flip, so if I've got a secret hidden in one particular area, I might use the lines and the lighting to draw your eye away from there, which has actually worked kind of well. Completely miss a hidden item, which is actually just hidden in plain sight, but they completely fail to spot it because their eye is drawn to the other side of the screen.
And I agree with that, and I see what you mean about playtesting and having fresh eyes. I also felt that, also found even hours of just not working on the project. You think it through in your head, you have ideas, hatch other thoughts, and then you come back to it. Yeah, tweak X, Y, or Z, and it's as though you are your own playtest in a way. Just give it.
Since I'm doing all the roles myself, it's very easy to do that. I can go away and work on programming for a week, come back, look at the art fresh, and go, okay, I'll fix up that bit or something. Go back to the game design and adjust that. So it's good. It's an easy way to split up the roles and look at
what you mean. And speaking of game design, Ben, what was the best game dev related book, lecture, or learning resource that you can
read? Gama Sutra, and you're a developer, you should. There's enormous wealth of resources there and on their sister sites for programming everything.
What was the name of that? Gama Sutra?
Gama Sutra, Gamas. And honestly, I think if you're a developer and you're not occasionally checking it at least for resources, then I think you're missing out. Influence on me was A Theory of Fun by Raf Costa.
Ah, yeah, that sounds familiar. Okay.
That's really worth reading. Is that games are about learning. They're about discovering new things and to some extent puzzle solving, but learning something about the game. It doesn't have to be teaching you something, but once you stop learning something new, you basically lose interest in the game. I think it's called tic-tac-toe. No, I'm not sure what they call it in other countries. Over in Australia, we call it noughts and crosses, where you're trying to make three crosses or circles in a row. Quick game to learn that dominant strategy, and at that point you know all there is to know about the game, and the game ceases to be fun. If I'm remembering correctly, it's been a while since I read that book actually.
Nice to refresh.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and read it again. In addition to that, I recommend just getting outside of games as well. I recommend reading about traditional art techniques and leaving the house, go explore the real world, and sort of bring back other experiences. I think a lot of people, especially a lot of game developers, tend to reach the scope of your imagination then.
I see both sides. I think that by referencing other games, it's proof of concept. Let's do it our way rather than carbon copy.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I understand and agree about going outside of games because they could give us something like that, but in a game context, from this book or that story or this film, or I happen to see it, and now and then you'll come across something that you just couldn't have thought of, or you couldn't write that.
Yeah, exactly.
Anton's or getting top quality piece of hardware, or simply equipment. Or it could even be simple as a desk or a comfy chair.
Well,
Brilliant.
When they shut down, it was great. They basically sold us everything on our desk, including the chair, for I think it was like $100, which was all they shut down. So I had a brand new top of the line PC. And they said, "Here you go, $100. That and the two 24-inch Dell monitors." So such a bargain.
Yes.
But what I was going to say was the decision to go with Maya and Photoshop over the free alternatives. The free alternatives to that sort of software to try and keep the cost down, since game was essentially going to be made off my own savings, buying the license for Maya and Photoshop. Because the tools are more mature and because that's where my experience lies, I felt that, and Photoshop's brilliant now with their licensing model, their the subscription model. Sorry, it's absolute bargain, but it's that or Max is your only options really if you want to get great software.
Oh, I agree and I see your point, but I also think that in AAA quality stuff or indie quality in any software, Max,
I'm certainly not trying to upgrade the free stuff. I've seen some races, and I decided it was worth the expense to avoid the learning period that would come with the new software. And
like Evernote or Trello, do you have any useful, productive software app or extension worth sharing with us?
I have for my phone and desktop called Wunderlist, actually, with a U, for Wunderlist. It has nothing to-do list style app, basically, because I've found that while I'm working on the game, and since it's my own project and what I'm passionate about, I tend to do. So it's a great way of keeping track of all my normal tasks, like, do the washing, vacuum the floor, so I can update it with, when I get an idea to do something out, talking to friends, I can write it in that, come back home, check it off. And so it's been a great way to keep track of everything outside of the project for projects like this. But something that I could take on the road with me and keep track of life outside of work was great. For mobile, so Android, Apple, and desktop.
You said there was with a U, so yeah. Wunderlust or
W.
I get you.
There's my plug. My plug for them. It was I've got quite a lot of use out of that. It's not really a replacement for proper task management.
Good way to jot down your ideas as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I use it for. Jotting down ideas or keeping track of when I'm supposed to be meeting people.
If you were in an identical world where your skills are the same, but your food and shelter taken care of, how different would it?
Probably wouldn't be all that different. Because I'm doing it by myself and on quite a small budget already, I could get someone else to do the UI, get someone else to do the sound, maybe outsource some of the artwork as well. but other was manageable by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had the extra cash, I could outsource it and get it done faster. But the game would probably be the same. This is basically the game I want to make. It's the game I want to make of the size and scope that I thought was appropriate for a solo developer with my skill set.
I get you. Yeah, interesting ideas, especially the outsourcing bit.
Yeah, I mean I've considered it as well. I may outsource UI. I've done that. I think it's something that I can easily give to someone who does it professionally and can take a workload off me, because I'm not a composer. So that will certainly be done. But otherwise, the rest of it, I want to do it myself. So even though I could outsource if I had the more cash, I probably wouldn't, or at least I wouldn't outsource much of it. I just do some.
Learning curve as well.
Well, some of it has been. Like I said, programming was the biggest risk. That was the thing that worried me the most. Get a demo up and running and make sure I can actually do this. And yeah, it turned out to be much less scary than I thought. I still have enormous respect for programming, but it's enough to make the game I want to make. So I'm quite happy with how it's turned out so far.
Somewhere, or read somewhere, I think it was by Napoleon Hill, that talked about, or Earl Nightingale, something like 999 times that you're concerned about or worried about doesn't actually happen. And it's always the things that you can't predict or can't really foresee. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I think that's right. And well, I think that comes down to adequate planning at that point. Probably because you've planned well. If they do end up being problems, it's your own fault, I think, because you've recognized there could be a problem and you haven't done anything about it.
I get what you mean, Ben. I know what you mean. Well, aside from that, Ben, it was very nice talking to you. And when roughly does the Kickstarter finish?
Kickstarter finishes in 8 days. I'm looking at it on one of my monitors.
July?
It is the 1st of July, or I think in Australian time it'll be 2nd of July, about the 1st of July at peak hour for the US.
Okay, yeah, about 8 days, 7 days from now. Very good.
Sitting at 72% and on track to meet the target. So that's.
Oh yeah, frankly, I think you'll and you're currently at what, 10?
Currently at
10 and a bit.
Almost 11 now. 10,922.
Yeah, you generally get over it with a comfortable amount, say 100 or 250, something like that, in time with a nice amount of time to spare.
So like all Kickstarters have that spike at the start, a flat period in the middle, and then a kick up at the end. So it'll really depend on how much of a kick it gets. So
I can't understand why that is, because it's nearly over. Everyone's heard about it. Newer games are coming on. Things are happening.
I think what happens, and then they sort of lose interest, I guess, in the middle. And then right at the end, you're like, oh, it's about almost over. If you're going to pledge, you better about it, but didn't have the time to look at it. And suddenly they've got a deadline, and it's like everything. People do it, wait till the last minute. So
if they see a progression bar, and it's like 90% done or 100% done, and your target is generally lower, people are more likely to follow the herd because it's already backed, so they know it's a safe, not bet, but safe project that they know they'll.
It certainly seems like it'd be easier to get more pledges if it's already successful, because people sort of want to jump on that trend. And the idea that certainly people want to back it. But I think it certainly helps towards the end of a project too, where they can see that it's become successful. That they can see that it's a good enough project that a lot of people have put their money behind it.
Very nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Daily Dev Talk with me, Adrian Nantchev. And to share your experiences and stories, then contact me at info@gameoverload.co.uk. That's info@gameoverload.co.uk.